This is episode 93, and we chat with the Jay Dilley, who is truly a change maker in driving a different evolution of how to shop for your money. Oh, this episode's probably for my dad. But this episode is actually for anyone who wants to have more options in finance, insurance, mortgages, and the list goes on. Which basically means this episode is for everyone. Jay provides such pure gold. We literally talk about so many things. We talk about how Ratebroker is the Tinder for financial services. What a creative way to describe it. The difference between rate comparison tools and Ratebroker itself. And hint, it's really about your data privacy. It's crazy. I had no idea. How to get vendors to bid for our business. That's right, they come to us. And how many people are unbanked and underbanked in Canada, which honestly, I didn't even know this actually existed. That totally surprised me, as we're not a third world country. So how is this even possibly happening? Tips for challenging the status quo. So this is for all of you innovators out there that want to challenge the norm. And it's about GDP. And GDP is not exactly what you think it is. He's brilliant, insightful, and honestly, everyone should be using Ratebroker because it's absolutely free. And I love having options. I mean, I really am a girl all about options. So this is the tool for me. Anyways, check it out. I can't wait for you to hear the episode, and I can't wait to hear your feedback, and we'll get started. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, the first ever podcast designed to showcase Canadian thought leadership. These innovators share industry insights, entrepreneurial best practices, lessons learned, and other tips that we can incorporate right into our lives, our careers, and our businesses. So let's get inspired. So I've got Jay Dilley, who is a Fintech entrepreneur and the CEO of Ratebroker. This is an innovative financial services marketplace that really truly acts as a champion for the consumer. I know it sounds like a lot, but he really believes in financial inclusion and is so passionate about improving people's lives through technology. Now, Jay is no stranger to this. He is an experienced executive. He's held the president and VP roles in many tech and commercial aviation firms. He's also been recognized as a top 40 under 40 recipient, which is amazing, I have to say, and for his championing of women in leadership. He holds a BComm in finance and economics. He's a CFA. I mean, come on, and a member of the YPO. This guy, we've got a lot to learn from. So welcome, Jay.
Good morning.
I can't believe we're taking this call at 5 a.m. in Honolulu. Talk about dedication.
Yeah, no, it's pitch black out here, but I'm super excited to be on the call with you.
Me, I am so too. I have so many questions. I gotta ask, what is Ratebroker to begin with?
So Ratebroker, what I usually tell people is it's like Tinder for financial services, and then it meets LastPass for financial services. So, what that means is we're your anonymous shopper, and we simplify busy lives by flipping the buying process to get financial institutions bidding on your business. So
let me get this straight. First of all, I love the Tinder for financial services. I think that's a great way of describing it. It's very colorful. But you're saying that people can bid for my business. So walk me through this. We're just talking about banks, just mortgages?
Yeah, so we're talking about any sort of financial product. Right now, what we look at is we have two verticals, mortgage and life insurance, and we're bringing other verticals online. But the typical buying process for anything is you go out and you visit a bank for, say, a mortgage. You fill out an application, and then they come back with some sort of decision, right? And if you didn't get the decision that you were looking for, maybe, depending on your financial situation, your job situation, all those kinds of things, maybe you go to another institution, right? And so you go, okay, what's another bank? And what we've done is we've said, well, actually, there's somewhat like 80 different lenders that are willing to provide you a mortgage. Now, for you to go do that, you would have to have an amazing boss and an amazing amount of time off, right? Because it's going to take you forever to fill out, like, oh, I got to get this form and that form, all those kinds of things, right? So what we do is we use technology to get those businesses to review your file and then decide whether they want to bid on your business or not, right? Everyone's got different algorithms, different credit requirements, those kinds of things. So it just makes the process so much easier, simplifies your life. You can do it from home in just a few minutes.
This is awesome because I am a big, huge person that believes in shopping for money. It comes from my dad's DNA that he's happy to change from financial institution to financial institution just to get the better rate. But you're right. We would never hit 80 institutions. I didn't even know there's 80 different lenders out there.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, right? So once you start to dig into how many people are out there that are in the various different spaces, whether it's life insurance or home insurance, those kinds of things, right? We typically go to one person, they tell us what the rate is, and then just say, like on home insurance, it's like next year, oh, I got a 10% bump. And you kind of do this thing where it's like, oh, that's a big bump. Like, are you sure? And then the person's like, yeah, I'm totally sure. That's just the way it is, right? And you're like, do I want to spend all my time trying to find another rate or not? And then you're like, okay, just do it because it's so much easier because everyone's busy. We've got limited time, limited bandwidth, and you go with it, right? And now what you can do is you can get that shopped for you, right? And they'll come back and say, actually, no, you can get a better rate. So it just makes life so much easier.
It totally does, but I'm kind of curious about this. So, for example, insurance. I mean, this is kind of a black hole for me. I know I need insurance. I have tons of insurance, but I have no idea what my insurance actually includes. So how do you compare and contrast? So all these bids come back saying, hey, here's all the different offers. And then is there a tool that helps you kind of compare and contrast them?
Yeah, so what we have is we've got a dashboard. And so this is sort of this idea behind you provide in a very customer-centric way, right? So if you think of your typical insurance interaction, you went into some sort of location, you sat across a desk from somebody, they've got their computer screen facing them, they tell you, sort of verbally what's up, right, kind of thing, and then you kind of make this decision. Now, in our process, what we do is we show you right in front of you, so you've got, say, 8, 9, 10 different options right in front of you, and then on each tile, if you will, we show you the highlights, the big things that are important to know about this particular policy, right? So, if there's a particular piece of coverage that is very unique, that's very beneficial, then you get to know it. We have customer ratings, right? So, when you think of rating a bank or rating an insurance company, it's very important that I know that, when I went to do a claim or something like that the process was great, that it wasn't like you get denied, or that it took forever, right? Those kinds of things. So we have this ability to provide a customer-centric platform which feeds off of customer inputs into the process, which then gives you more insight and detail as to what you're actually looking for and what you're actually going to get.
Wow, this is amazing. And how come we've never had this before in Canada?
It's interesting, right? So Fintech, I would say we're sort of at this, Fintech version 1.5 stage. There's a lot of other countries that have got various forms of this in different stages. In Canada, what we have is we don't have open banking yet. We're sort of working on that, whereas over in Europe, they've worked on the standards. So you're able to move between financial institutions a lot easier because now they have a protocol for accessing data and whatnot, right? We're a little bit more conservative in this country in how we've done things. And also the other thing is banks have done a tremendous job at marketing, right? When you turn on the TV, it's one of the big guys advertising. And so from a technological standpoint, I think we're now actually at this tipping point where people get that it's okay to shop online for things, and that people are now sort of resisting the status quo, and they're saying, like, wait a second, why am I paying so much? Like, why do I have to pay a monthly fee? Why am I paying this fee? Why am I paying this fee? Right? So people are awakening to more options, and they're seeing things because it's a global community now, right? You get to see things in other countries, and that's where we're starting to see some more traction in Canada in the fintech space.
No, it's interesting because I just had Daniel Ebert from Coho also talk about, Canadians don't know how much fees we're paying, the challenges that we don't have this open banking system, how it's really kind of, protected a lot of the bigger financial institutions, and, we don't have as many options and we can't see things, but there's so much more innovative fintech solutions out there that we could be leveraging that kind of gives the power back to the consumer. So this is really interesting. So do you think this open banking is going to come out like soon in Canada or North America?
Well, right now they're starting. The governments are starting to take a look at it. They're looking for feedback from the community. So I don't foresee it coming anytime soon, but also I don't foresee it never coming. Right. So in the next couple of years, they'll probably be able to table some sort of new legislation and then work on getting us there, and that'll be just absolutely huge for people like ourselves, which are customer-centric platforms, right? I always say, fintechs take a totally different perspective than incumbents when we're talking about servicing customers, right? We take an approach that is customer-centric. We're looking at where those underserved markets or the markets that have never been served, and how do we actually help those people? Incumbents take the view of, I have my pie, I want to protect it, and those other people, they're not profitable, so I don't need to or care about servicing them. So it's just a totally different mindset. One is abundance versus scarcity.
Oh, that is so insightful. Actually, one of the things that threw me for a loop was you had mentioned that there's a lot of Canadians that are actually excluded from the financial system. Like, I believe you said there was like about 1 million in 2015 and that were unbanked. And I'm like, how does that even happen? Is that even possible? I was really flabbergasted.
Yeah, no, it's when you think about the number of people that are unbanked or underbanked in Canada, we're not an undeveloped country. We're a developed country. There's no way this should happen. And so, an unbanked person is somebody that doesn't have a bank account. They're using non-traditional financial services. So think of payday loans, right? Right. They're super expensive, and you would go like, okay, well, why would anybody ever use this service? Well, that's the only service that is available to them. And yes, it is super expensive, but that's the kind of service that they have access to. And it's totally predatory, right? And then you think of underbanked people, which is, people that have maybe a bank account or have some financial services, but they're not being serviced the way they should be. So they're not typically taking advantage of all the products that are available to them because they're not being offered to them, and they're also much more expensive to them than to other people, right? And so and the other big thing for me is that women are the most financially excluded, right? So this is something that's really strikes home, right? Is that, if we were to bring more women into the economy, we're going to change our economy. And if we're able to bring more women into the economy, we're going to give them way more power to be able to be a voice of change and for good. And so these things need to happen, and we need to realize and understand how we can actually make the unbanked or the underbanked become part of the traditional, if you will, or the new financial system, by offering services that are tailored and relevant to them and allow access to for them.
This is so cool. So now they're going to be able to see there are other types of options out there besides just payday loans. And it's almost kind of like a bit of an education for them to see and open up their eyes to kind of go, I had no idea I could get access this way.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So being able to access more lenders than you're typically thinking of, in the sense of, my parents dealt with one of the big banks, right? Yeah. That's sort of your limited view of the world. And now all of a sudden it's like, wait, there's 80 different lenders out there, and one of them for sure is going to give me the loan. It might not be the greatest rate because of your situation, all those kinds of things, or maybe it is the absolute best rate because it's going to be way better than the bank offered because you fit their world, right? And it can't happen in a world where we don't have the technology. We now have the ability and the connectivity to access, and so there's no reason for us to have people that are excluded from the financial system, right? We can bring everyone in now.
No, this is amazing. To your point, we're not a third world country, so this should be accessible to all.
Yes.
So out of curiosity, this Ratebroker, does it cost consumers anything to go and inquire about all these different lenders and get these biddings?
No, it's from a consumer-centric standpoint, we look at it and we say there's no reason that this should cost, right? It's information. That's what we want to be able to share with people. So it doesn't cost them anything to access the platform. We don't sell data. That's another big thing for us, is that we don't sell data for people. Think of Facebook, all the trouble that they're coming through right now, right? Like, again, they think it's their data. Well, no, we think of it as it's your data, and you get to decide whether you want to go forward with a transaction or not go forward with a transaction. That's how it works on our platform. Your data is your data. We never, ever sell it.
Oh, that is so amazing, because privacy is such a huge thing. And, and Jay, you've heard the podcast. So we've had Dr. Ann Kavokian a couple of times talking about privacy and security so many times. So this will be a big, huge, great relief. So you're saying that I can go and do this and inquire about all this with no fees. And I'm guessing there's no obligation. It's just purely I can get just more options at my fingertips and honestly be able to kind of compare and contrast things, and which I wouldn't have had access to before. So that sounds like a kind of a win-win for me, for anyone.
It is, right? And, when some people go, I've heard of like rate comparison sites, right? And that's the trap that sometimes people get into, is they go, oh, yeah, no, I can do that. But guess what? They've taken your data. They've sold your data. They've signed like an exclusivity period on your data, right? And to their credit, yeah, they've got it in their terms and conditions. They say this, but, it's not necessarily apparent that somebody gets sold off for like $100 a head or something like that, right? You don't think of it that way. You're like, oh, I'm looking at rates, and yeah, this is interesting, right? I've input my data and all those kinds of things. With us, it's you totally have the power. You decide whether anyone is ever going to contact you, and if you just wanted to look at rates, great, right? If you're just trying to empower yourself with a bit more knowledge before you make a transaction sometime in the future, that's cool too.
I had no clue that those rate comparison sites, because I've gone on those quite a few times, I had no idea that and honestly, that's really bad on me, because I probably should have put two and two together, that they were selling our data. I had no clue about that. So that's what the difference really is between the Ratebroker and a rate comparison tool, is really kind of it's the data piece.
For sure. And you'll see also the other big thing is advertising, right? Mm. So how somebody chooses to monetize, right, is a big indicator of the view of the world, basically, right? And we're not allowing people to advertise on our site. We're not allowing people to, push their product ahead of someone else's product. Again, it's what's right for the customer. And if you're always doing things that are right for that individual, then, I've got a clean conscience at the end of the day, right? I don't have to worry that, we allowed somebody to spend a bunch of money to get to number one kind of thing. And that really it's a terrible product for them, right? That's the difference, right?
So if I pick a product, and from that, because you've given me about, a bunch of different options, I pick one, how does Ratebroker then get money, make the cash? It's between the institution and them. How does that kind of work? Are you able to share that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. So it's a completion-based model. So if you never go forward with a product, we never see anything. And if you decide to go forward with a product and you actually complete and close on that, then we would get basically sort of a technology type fee for allowing that access and transmission, right? And so that's how our system works, is it's completion. If you go forward, we'll get something. If not, we don't get anything.
Got it. So it's totally in the back end. It's nothing to the consumers, and it doesn't actually change the way that they see all the different options. So it's completely transparent. The power is still in the consumer's fingertips.
Absolutely.
Love this. This is super exciting. Oh, this is really cool. Out of curiosity, how did you come up with this idea?
Well, I chatted a little bit about, women in leadership, women in general, right? And, some of my background prior to this was I had created the first Women in Leadership Executive Development Program in the Canadian airline space. And it's always been a big focus for me is making sure that we have women included. And so I started with in a space that I had control and power over. So we saw terrible, terrible numbers in the airline industry of women involvement in the leadership space, right? So less than 4%. The pilot numbers are terrible, right? They're less than, 4. Maintenance was really bad. They were less than 6%. So, I got in and I said, there's something I can do. And so we created this program, which was, we basically named it Mile, right? And it was all about walking a mile in your own shoes, because your shoes fit you, they don't fit me. We always think of, walk a mile in somebody else's shoes because, you need to understand them, right? And I think you lose so much authenticity when you do that, because you're not actually learning who you are, what works for you, right? Getting your own voice. And so that was super important to walk a mile in your own shoes. And the mile for us just meant mentoring. It meant industry involvement. And so like when we would go out to industry events and stuff, there was always two types of people there. There was men and gray-haired men, right? Like that was your audience, right? So it was like, okay. So we got more women involved in industry events. So we had mentoring, industry involvement, then leadership rotations and education. And education wasn't like, again, it wasn't directed to say, this is the kind of leader you need to be, and this is the style and everything like that. It was like, what interests you? Go do that. Because that as a person and for development is more important than taking some sort of, course, right? It's exploration. It's curiosity. Figure out what works for you, and then make that happen kind of thing, right? And so for me, that's what sort of happened, is that I was making a transition, done a lot of tech sort of related things and wanted to do something else. And I've got a lot of strong women in my life, and, recognized through interactions and talks with some of my family members and friends that there's this need for financial inclusion. And I've got obviously a pretty heavy financial background. I went, oh, this is just perfect, right? There's something we can do to better society, and this is it.
And you know what else I found really fascinating about you, Jay, is that you also talk about financial inclusion even down to the children level, that for them to understand that money matters at such a young age. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, right? Like, so you think about how does money get sort of discussed among family members when you grow up? So there's the potential that it never gets discussed, right? It's a taboo subject. And so what does that do? And then in school, was there ever a discussion about money or anything like that? No, it was, you take your English class, your history class, your biology class, those kinds of things. And what's like the first thing that you have to do when you're like 18 years old or, you're out of university or something like that? It's like, go to the bank and get a credit card. Oh, woohoo, right? Like I've got all this money. And then it's like a month later, you're like, oh no. Oh, what do I do with this, right? And people can get into trouble so quickly, right? Because you don't understand interest, the power of compound interest, right? So, you need to invest, right? You got to start early and show all these graphs and charts. Well, you've already hit somebody that's now in their mid-20s or 30s or wherever they're at, and they're like, yeah, well, I've got real life, right? I can't do that, and it's the first time they're hearing it, right? And so we need to start educating people earlier in life about finances in general, right? About entrepreneurship, about business. If you want people to be more engaged later on in life, you're going to have to start it earlier. So it's really important, I think.
So I got a funny story to tell you. So my nieces, which I'm kind of crazy about them, but we watched Mary Poppins. So, they just came out, but we watched the original and then we watched the new one that came out back to back. So what was really funny was because one of my nieces actually said, how could two tuppence, and like 50 years later, be able to pay for an entire house? And that was when she became really curious to understand how the math kind of worked. And so we started teaching her about compound interest, right? Isn't that fascinating that something so small creates the light bulb going, and it's her cynical side going, how is that possible you could pay for an entire house with 2 tuppence? Do tuppence even exist anymore? Because pennies don't exist in Canada either, right? So
that's hilarious. That's awesome. I love the curiosity behind that, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, well, they're characters and a half. They're definitely that. But that's great because, now we're talking about different things, and I showed them how to use a compound interest calculator, and now they're just penny pinchers all over the place because now they negotiate a different way for everything, especially birthday money. Like, it's it's become a game now. It's,
I love that, negotiating for birthday money.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they have plans of what they want and so on. It's just taken life on its own.
That's so good.
So there's so much happening in the fintech space. You've got this going on. What's next for Ratebroker?
Well, so I'm in Honolulu right now, and it strikes home so much how bad we are when it comes to cell phone bills, right? It is just crazy. And so that one has been on our radar for a while. And, being here it's the service level, the amount that you're able to get for the dollar value. And everyone in Canada knows that we pay the most in the world, right? And you go to other countries and you're like, I pay 10% and I get, 200% more. This is crazy. So, one of those products that is sort of on the docket now is for sure cell phone plans. That hits everybody. And that'll be a big one, right, for people to save $10-20 a month, depending on their situations. So those things are all sort of on their internet as well, and we've got a bunch more verticals that are going to be coming that are going to help people out.
This is exciting because we definitely need that. I know a guy that actually has a cell phone from the USA because he said, even when I pay the conversion rate, the exchange rate, I'm paying the bill, it's still cheaper. Their packages are better. And I'm like, what? Is that crazy or what? But yeah, we need to see that. This is exciting. So anything else that's exciting you about the fintech industry in Canada or globally?
Just seeing the opportunities that are coming forward, and the people in the spaces and the solutions that are coming up, right? Is microfinance, people. It's so refreshing to see people in the industry looking for opportunities to help other people that have not been helped before, right? It's such a great feeling to see, right? And that's super exciting for me.
I love people that are challenging the status quo and making things happen in a different dimension. And you definitely are right there in that criteria. But I was wondering, do you have any advice you could give to any of those others that are trying to kind of challenge the norm? Because it's quite hard.
Yeah, for sure. Right. I think, one of the things that I've been talking about lately is it's called your personal GDP, right? And it's become a big thing for me, especially since we see such polarization of the world now, right? In viewpoints, right? Everyone's so entrenched in their views and those kinds of things. And so this personal GDP, what it is it's the gender distribution profile of people that you follow, right? And so what does that mean, right? So think of your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram feed, your LinkedIn feed, right? All these different feeds. And you have followers on them, right? And you follow people. Well, how many non-binary, how many women, how many men are you following? Because those voices are impacting your worldview, right? And so if you find out that, just say you're following 70, 80% men, then that means your worldview is being shaped and designed by those voices that you're taking in, right? And it becomes an echo chamber, right? And so what I tell people is I said, find out your personal GDP and then do something about it. Make a change, right? Because it impacts your mindset more than any single person that you could potentially follow. So change that distribution, right? And you'll see it right away in like a Twitter feed or something like that, where all of a sudden now they're suggesting more of who you've just followed. And that's going to sort of reduce that polarization. And I think that's a big thing for people in general, right? Because it is difficult, right? And people have polarized views. And I think this is just something in society in general we need to do. And another thing I think is, just never get lost in the hype, right, of things, right? Because people are doing so many cool different things. Like I get the opportunity to meet with people, and you hear about people that are working in the healthcare sector that are just totally changing lives, and you're like, oh my, this is so amazing, right? Like they're helping kids and everything like that, right? But you need to focus on what inspires you and what makes you happy, right? And it's that authenticity, right? Like what makes you tick, and follow that, and forget all of those other things, right? It's staying focused is the big thing for me.
Oh, that's brilliant. I really like that advice, especially the personal GDP, because I thought you were going to say gross domestic product.
Yeah, I know.
I did not expect gender distribution profile.
Boring. Right, yeah.
Especially with the CFA, right? Do you expect that acronym to come?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, this is brilliant. And finally, how can our listeners connect with you, Ratebroker?
Yeah, so you can connect on all of the social channels. We pretty much got everything. So, my personal handle is Jay_Dilley, and that's on all the, Instagram and Twitter, on LinkedIn as well. And through there, you can hook up with Ratebroker CA on the social channels as well.
I love that. So, everyone, I think you need to follow either Jay or I to help balance your GDP to make it all better. This is fantastic. Jay, seriously, I cannot say thank you enough for your time, especially being so early in the morning. You're just an absolute brilliant. visionary, and I can't wait to get people to start using Ratebroker more and more and more, and for you to increase that roadmap to cell phones and internet, because we definitely need all of it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining and listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, please share with your friends and colleagues. You can share on social media, the email link, the newsletter, and so on. Let's continue to support these Canadian innovators and help them really grow into bigger brands. Awareness and knowledge is totally key. Anyways, I can't wait to talk to you next week. Cheers.